everybody, and welcome to the 1825 podcast. It is so good to have you with us wherever you are joining in from. My name is Zico Alexander, and I have some guests with me in the studio today. We're going to get into it in just a little bit, but hey, we are very, very excited for today. We are very, very excited to record and to share a little bit of wisdom, share a little bit of guidance, share a little bit of funny stories.
Yes.
I don't know where this is going to go.
Who knows?
Who knows where this is going to go? But it's going to go somewhere.
Yes.
That's all we can promise right here, right now.
Excited.
For those of you who don't know me, I look after our 1825 ministry, our young adult ministry in Stellenbosch. And once again, very, very excited to be sharing with you today. To my left,
Yes.
my co-host.
We've made it.
You have.
This is my first podcast.
It's awesome. My co-host today, we have the one, we need to clap. Everybody needs to clap. We have the one, the only, Zachary Walters with us today.
Yes.
Come
Nice,
on.
Zach.
Thank you, Josh.
You made it.
On the streets, they call him
What do they call me?
Lil Gravy.
Lil Gravy. Okay, that's goated. Why?
I don't know yet.
Yes,
So I always bring the sauce.
Oh.
Oh,
I actually like that.
that's actually
This
Where
could
we going
be
with that?
yes,
Yes.
I don't know.
Lil Gravy.
Lil Gravy.
To my left is Lil Gravy. If you're Little Gravy, Josh is like little.
I don't know.
I don't know.
We're not going there.
We are also joined in the studio by the one, the only Joshua Govender.
Yes.
Everybody.
Go.
These are two legends on our team here at Hillsong, South Africa. Zachary Walters looks after the Hillsong Southern Suburbs Youth Ministry.
Yes.
And Josh Govender. Well, what doesn't he look after is the question I ask.
You're trying to fill the gap because you don't know what
Yeah, just tell me what you do.
I help in our commercial department.
Oh,
So work alongside some great people, great teams, and yeah.
He also helps look after me from time to time.
Yeah.
Help feed Zach every now and again.
It's a beautiful thing. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, we're going to get into it right now. I want to open up just lightheartedly, if that's all right. Does this work?
You look cozy.
Do I look fine?
You're looking very
Look like you're at home. I
1825.
love it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going for. The casual.
The young dad look.
Yes.
The
That's
young
correct.
dad look is great.
I want to ask you this before we jump into all the serious stuff.
Yeah.
Overrated or underrated?
Oh.
Tell me overrated or underrated.
Okay.
Tell me smoke machines in church. Overrated or underrated?
Okay.
Definitely underrated.
Yeah,
Underrated?
we
Actually,
actually,
we
we actually don't talk about smoke machines enough.
We should double up on smoke machines.
Why? Why?
Because it's just vibes.
You like it?
Yeah, 100%.
Well, let me be honest. I'm in a building where we don't even have smoke machines. so
we definitely double
I
up.
think we need to double up on those for sure.
I
Atmosphere.
don't get the vibe. It just creates...
Well, I feel like smoke machines, you can't just have a smoke machine. You need to have a fan as well. So it doubles up as like this. Your hair's blowing, smoke is, and then it's the whole vibe.
Let me tell you, how can you have the glory is coming without smoke pumping onto the platform?
Exactly. Yeah,
Never thought of it like that.
Very much underrated.
Okay.
I don't remember the last time I spoke about a smoke machine.
Yeah, no, it's deep.
These are deep
content.
questions.
It's deep. Tell me this. Praise songs before the worship song. Overrated, underrated.
Oh,
I know my opinion.
okay, you go, Zach.
This is a trick one.
Yeah.
Zach.
We may lose half.
Zach is about to get cancelled, right?
I am a firm believer in the praise song.
Wow.
Firm believer.
Tell us why.
Yeah, why?
If there's maybe someone watching that's not into the praise song,
Yes.
for whatever reason, why should that be a thing?
Now, I don't know if this is maybe I'm not as spiritual as most 1825ers,
That's right.
but I do enjoy a second to just warm up into it, It gives me a second to get some energy out, praise God, dance a little bit, and then I'm there. I'm into the presence of God.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with it. I think I praise.
I love a praise song as well.
Yeah.
It's
We need more
I
praise.
feel like we should go like old school though. Like
your love is relentless.
no, older than that.
Older
Like-
than that.
Like no tracks. Like
On
Where's the- Davey- Da-
eagle's wings.
no, man, like Davey would know. Davey would know. Like where there's no tracks, it's just rock. Like just
Spontaneous
straight- yeah.
worship.
No, you are on a different page. I'm talking about that like one way.
Wow.
All
How does that one go?
No, I'm definitely not singing that.
Yeah.
But it's more like old school because that for me was just crazy. Just dudes just stage
So what
diving.
you're saying is you're living in the past. Let's go into
Okay.
Zico. Josh is saying we got to bring back the long hair, leather
Yeah.
jackets, boots.
Skinny jeans.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay, last one. Having tattoos, overrated or underrated?
Overrated.
Overrated. Mad
don't do it.
overrated.
Don't do it.
Is that your actual thought?
Yeah, no, overrated. Don't do it.
No, really?
Yeah, I rate.
Is that how you feel?
Just never get a tattoo in your life.
If you could choose again, would you get some or
I
lost
would
them
get
completely?
my entire body done.
Okay, beautiful. What do you reckon, Zach?
I don't have an opinion on tattoos,
Okay.
but that's a bit boring.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming
Well,
to the podcast,
yeah,
Zach.
thanks for,
Thanks.
yeah.
That's the end of that.
Yeah. So, guys, it was good having Zach on the podcast today. He's checked out,
How do
obviously.
you how do you feel about tattoos?
No, I don't know. I was just wondering what your guys' thoughts are. I like them a lot.
I think
Yeah.
it can add a lot
To an extent.
to an aesthetic,
Yeah.
to a look. Like, look at you with tattoos, and then imagine Zico without that on his arm.
I'm half the man.
Well,
Without
me without tattoos is just a skinny Indian kid. Definitely.
I don't have any yet.
Oh, you'll get them. Man.
One day,
Yeah.
one day.
In time. Hey, there's seasons for everything in life.
Yes,
Zach.
Ecclesiastes.
There's a season for tattoos. And there's a season for
No tattoos.
exactly.
I'm definitely gonna get more.
Yeah, same.
So for me, yeah, I dig him. But it's also the art. Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, in the comments.
Yeah.
Everything in
I'm
the
gonna
comment
get-
section. Let us know what you think about that.
Tell me what you think.
I'm gonna
Tell me
get a
what you think about
tattoo on my
tattoos.
form that just says nothing is permanent.
Oh,
Okay, well,
deep.
that's unique.
Anyway,
Yeah,
moving on.
thanks.
Moving on. I want to have a discussion today,
Yeah.
going straight from the ridiculous to the
Yes.
deep. But I want to have a discussion today about the importance of today, the importance of the decisions that you make today and how they affect your destiny. I sort of have tagged it sharpening your sword, because that's what I believe a lot of our 18-25 age group, maybe you're not in that age group, but you're in a season of preparation. You're in a season of God getting you ready for whatever He has for you. You're in a season where you are working on yourself and working things out. And I think so often when it comes to destiny, we have this very fatalistic view of destiny, like it's somewhere out there, and if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen, and we are waiting for this moment with destiny. But I think there's so much connected with what we do today and what our destiny actually looks like one day. And so I know, it's sometimes, you can't control what's going to happen in the future, but you, in a sense, you can get yourself ready, and you can make sure that today you're sharpening your sword, so that one day when you're facing the giant, you'll be ready for what God has for you. And so I'd love to have a conversation around that, just a little topic, nothing too crazy, nothing too serious. But before we get into that, I was actually interested in your stories and how you've come to be Christian, how you've come to be on staff. Tell us a little bit briefly about your stories, if that's okay. Josh, maybe you, and then Zacho, whoever else.
Easy. I grew up in church. We forced more like it, but we would go to church, and then like any church kid that kind of didn't really want to be there, you kind of make your own path. And it was bad. Drugs, all of those sort of things was in the season that I was in. We would play around with a lot of those kind of stuff. And then when I got to matric, it got really bad, and my mom, never ever underestimate the power of a praying mom. They can shift destinies, and jeez, like if my mom if she didn't pray for me and have my back in that way, it would have been really bad. But she was like, hey, I know this great place in Sydney. They've got a music program. I was busy. I love music. And she was like, just go. I'll pay for everything. But it was more like, just go and go get your life right kind of thing. And like, go kind of get clean and, kind of behave. I went to Sydney, which was Hillsong College. And I still wasn't saved. So 6 months or 4 months into it, I was still partying and still doing my thing, showing up to New Testament class.
You were in Bible school, but you weren't.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Hey, don't judge me. I'm not
a judgment, man. I'm just pointing out the interesting. You just brushed over that. Yeah, I was in Bible college and I wasn't actually saved. You're like, whoa. Anyway, continue.
I guess I didn't really have a revelation of what it meant to be saved, and because I grew up in church, so you would go because it's just part of what you did. You still wouldn't really. And then 4 months into, I was still partying. My mom said she'd pay for everything, so I was kind of like, cool, I've got money, and that was my mom and my dad. But then 4 months into it, it was nothing special. I was standing in the back of our chapel, like services we'd do on a Tuesday, and I was just standing in the back like usual, a little bit hungover, like not really caring. And I just had this radical feeling of soberness. I just was instantly sober. It was the weirdest thing.
Wow.
Brain fog gone. Could think clearly for the first time in 10 years. I don't know. Like it was unreal. Like it was the most surreal thing I've ever. People wouldn't really feel the weight of it unless you experience it. But it's even talking about it doesn't really have that much weight. But like I physically felt sober. Like everything was just clear again. Went cold turkey on everything. And yeah, it was. I relapsed once a year after, pretty badly. Like yeah, for a week I was up for a week. It was crazy. And but then after that, kind of committed to this life with God, and I was still in college, so I ended up not coming back home because I just didn't want to be involved with everything back home. Stayed in college till I had to move back. So yeah, my salvation story really started 4 months into college, really. And it was, it's been radical ever since. I think I met my wife when I moved back. We've been a part of our church. I've been a part of our church since 2011 in Sydney, 2014, and we've just been now on staff.
What a story!
Doing our things.
Holy smokes! What a story! That is crazy. I mean, we should spend like an hour just on that. But
I might actually leave the podcast.
Yeah, just literally, Zach. Can you just be quiet for the next hour? Yeah, actually. I love it. Well, thanks for sharing. Zach, what about you?
I mean, I think growing up, I always felt like my salvation story wasn't big enough to be an actual story, because you'd hear people like that who had been on drugs, been drinking, had that whole story. But I basically grew up straight into church. At the time, we were part of the Salvation Army, which many people know as like an organization, but is also a global church. And my parents both worked with the Salvation Army at the time, so I very much like grew up in church. And then very non-traditionally, I actually got saved watching Narnia.
What?
And
That's awesome.
Very, very different. But I was 7, and I was watching Narnia one day with my mom. And the scene where Aslan dies as like a 7-year-old is very brutal. So I was very, very emotional.
Wow.
Looking at that. And we finished the movie, and we had this coffee table book in our lounge that kind of unpacked Narnia and how it relates to the story of Jesus and the Bible and all of that. So my mom kind of asked me, why did you feel emotional like that, whatever? And so I was explained like seeing him die and all of that. And there was a page in the Narnia book that's basically like an altar call and relates that story of Aslan to the story of Jesus and has a prayer at the end. And so my mom led me through that prayer, and I got saved in my lounge after watching that movie.
That's actually awesome.
Which is like very, very different. And then from there, I was part of church at the Salvation Army until around grade 5, which after that we moved to Hillsong. And then I've been part of our church here since grade 5 through our youth ministry, did our internship.
Wow.
And then,
Actually, I think that story is your testimony, your story is way more difficult to like be than my story. Because as much as people go like, I wish I had a hardcore story and God took me out of this.
Yeah.
Bro, being faithful like all of those years, and I think that is like those daily decisions to follow Christ.
Yes.
It's not like roses every day.
Yeah.
Like that's difficult. Look, I'm like, man, that is crazy. It's easy not to have morals and just do whatever you want and live this life that just fills you with empty things,
Sheesh.
But that's sick, bro. I like that.
Great insight. Wow, encouragement.
You see, I told you,
Yeah,
God takes care of me,
There's
man.
just fellowship happening right in front of my eyes. It's a beautiful
powerful,
thing.
bro.
He gave me the name Lord Gravy.
I was wondering who it was. Oh, that's beautiful. I want to ask you this. Both of you are leading at a high capacity. You're leading people. You're leading teams. You are. You've grown from that moment of salvation to step into so much more and more responsibility. That is. And I want to ask you, as you look back at maybe the last 5-10 years, what are some things you look back on and you go, you know what, that actually prepared me for what I'm doing now, or you know what, that actually, what I did back then, it feeds straight into what I'm doing now. I want to ask you, just share a little bit about things in the past that maybe you don't connect with it now, but you see now and what you're doing and the responsibility you're carrying. All of it has linked up, and all of it has gotten you ready for the moment that you are at right now. Not that you can ever be ready,
Yes.
but it's prepared you for where you are now. Are there any things that you look back on and you go, oh wow, that and that and that and that to where you are now?
Oh, depths. I got lots of stories, but you go.
Okay, I'll go.
Just hold the mic a little bit. There you go.
Just be a bit closer.
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah, I think you're good.
Beautiful.
Listen, I'm not an expert.
Yeah. But I do know a thing or two. The last 20 years of ministry. Yeah, I mean, when you say 5-10 years, 10 years ago I was 12.
Yeah.
So
That's why I said 5.
So many decisions.
He's young, we're old. That's why I said 5-10. You see what I did there?
What to put in your lunchbox?
Yeah. I don't know how
the
many
girls like?
decisions I was making at 12,
Yeah.
but probably within high school. I think I always just made a decision to have great relationships and great friendships. And I think lots of people made decisions to be receivers of great friendships if they came, but weren't willing to put in the work to invest in that. And so I think throughout high school, friendships from a church side, from a school side, from wherever, was just always the intentionality to keep good people close to me. And so I think that's definitely helped shape me and have some different voices in the picture. And then high school, probably around grade 9 or 10 is where I really felt the call to go into ministry. And so I really, from then, started making some decisions to set myself up for what that would one day look like. So, I mean, I live in Tableview, and I went to school in the southern suburbs. And so for anyone who's joining from, Guatemala,
Across the world.
Kuala Lumpur.
it's around like
Randoms. Just every Antarctica, even.
it's like an hour drive in the morning in traffic. And so I would sit in the morning from grade 10 to 12 with earphones in, listening to different messages, different podcasts, different content, trying to grow myself and be a part of that. So I think for me, it was always just really opening myself to wisdom, searching for it, looking for it, open to good advice.
I love that. I was chatting to a guy the other day who also feels called to ministry, and he's a bit older than you were when you got that call. And I sort of just shared with him, like, it's going to be a series of decisions that you have to make to step into it. Because people think, oh, I'm called to ministry, here we go. But there comes so much discipline, so much tough decisions that you have to make as you step into that. It's not just going to fall into your lap or happen to you in a moment. It's going to be a series of decisions. And even seeing from a young age, you've made decisions. And it sets you up for where you are now. And for those of you who are listening and not tuning in, Zach is a strapping young man sitting right next to me.
Really, but he's really, really short.
But he's a great leader, and he has such wisdom. I've heard many people say this about you, such wisdom beyond your age. And you're like, where does that come from? Oh, it comes from the fact that he was listening to his In the House of God since he was 12. Earlier.
It's crazy, bro.
Like, that's what's going to happen if you make those decisions daily. What about you?
It's so funny. Before I talk about, I met you when you were 12.
Yeah, I was a kid.
Crazy.
I'm old. Decisions, man, there's so many. Davey's sitting literally opposite me. He knows a couple of the decisions I've had to make and had to go through. But also, just to set the platform, like I think for a lot of the time, for myself, I looked at decisions as additions. So like, I think in the world, you make one decision and it adds to a different decision, and you add to this, and then one decision adds to that. But I think when you're in line with the will of God, your decisions aren't additions, they're multiplications. So, and I think
tweak that or X that.
Yeah, and I think I've had to really come to terms with, it's okay if it doesn't all add up immediately. Do you know what I mean? Like the multiplications, your decisions now, even though it is multiplied, when you're aligned with God's will, it will be multiplied. But that doesn't mean you get the multiplication result immediately.
Wow.
And I think for me, like going to college, I was studying music at college, and for 3 years I did that, and seeing all my friends, write songs that would be performed at conferences of thousands, and people using their gifting, say, to play on Sundays and in chapel services. And for 3 years, I think I played once, and all I did was study music.
Wow.
I didn't play at all. But then moving to South Africa, I mean, Davey can tell you, like, bro, we were playing 6 days a week. We were playing like every day. Like it went from 0 to 100.
Man.
And I think those 3 years of not playing and 3 years of just making the decision to just be faithful in my craft, keep learning, keep writing, keep, doing the things making the decisions that didn't make sense in the time. 3 years later made sense.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? And then even within that season of being here and, us playing pretty much every day, to be honest, MDing, all of these things that I thought I would never do. Do you know what I mean? And then us building into team and all that sort of stuff, and then led to the next season with Wifey, and then it's like into the next season, and in every season, you can see the multiplication. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't necessarily 1 + 1 = 2. Do you know what I mean? It was always like that. That decision added to something that was over and above, and it's just been, yeah.
I even sometimes think with our relationship with God and in areas of growth, it's that when God shifts us into next seasons, it happens so drastically and so quickly and so big, and everyone else goes, "How did that happen for you? How did that fall into line?" And you're like, I love what you're saying there, because it links up in the sense of it's multiplying. So that when you're ready for that next step, or when you make that next decision, it's a big shift.
Wow.
But because because the decisions have been stacking on top of each other and multiplying, that's how God moves you.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah,
like David goes from the field, and next moment he's in front of Goliath, but he's so ready for that moment because all the daily decisions that he's been making. It's definitely like a mindset shift, because we live in a world, especially like 18 to 25, it's a very instant thing. You want 1 + 1 = 2. You want it now. You want it like, my decision now needs to take me to the next level and stuff. So there is an element of patience in it, and trusting God that if it happens in a month, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, it could be whatever. I'm in a season of waiting. You're probably in a season, like we're all probably in a season of waiting, but when it comes, it comes. It comes. 100%.
And it's in that waiting that you prepare yourself, and you prepare for the multiplication.
100%. I love that.
Wow.
Contradicting my previous question, we've talked about decisions. I want to talk about moments. Because there's daily decisions, and then I almost feel like there's I don't know how better to say it, so forgive me, but I feel like there's moments, key moments. I think about Jesus as a boy in the temple, where there's this moment where his parents go back from the pilgrimage and he stays behind, and he stays behind to listen and to be in his father's house. And the Bible says, the scriptures says that his parents come back to find him, and it says they were worried about him, and then Jesus travels back with him, and it ends off that passage saying Jesus grew in favor and stature and wisdom, and he grew in favor with God and man. And it's almost like this snapshot in Jesus's life that's like a moment. And it even says that Jesus' mother treasured these things in her heart. Like it was this moment for her where she realized, like, oh, this kid is different. I wonder if is there any moments where you look back on your journey as key defining moments? Because you have your daily decisions, but then I feel like you have key moments where you go, if it didn't go right there, or if I didn't make the right choice there, or if I didn't, that was a moment that was key. Do you look back on those moments as you doing what you're doing now and leading people, where you go, that was a key moment for me?
Sure.
I think maybe like I'll touch on a moment in a, not a professional at the mic yet, like you.
Help the strapping young
man.
Thank you. Oh, Josh, he's a servant.
This is my guy.
He's a servant.
I think going into this year, my phrasing as an individual, as like clarity for the year, has been just 2 words: moments matter. And we've been speaking about it in our youth team as well. And funny enough, I was having a conversation with someone a few weeks ago and said, like, this is kind of what I'm thinking for the year. And they gave me a book that was basically defining moments matter. So I've been thinking about it a whole bunch. And I think obviously in life we have your 18th birthday, your 21st, your matric ball, graduating, becoming a post-grad, like all these like natural moments that life gives us to reset. And I think like being a young adult and thinking about young adults, I think there's just a pace that there's so many moments that matter in very quick succession. And even touching on what you said, that whole thought of like wisdom beyond your years, I think for me, that moment and that phrasing put a ton of pressure on me to get every moment right, because everyone thinks this guy's wise beyond his years. So now you go, all right, I guess I got to be wise beyond my years all the time and make good decisions. And I think there is a lot of pressure right now in a young adult culture to make every single moment matter. And you've got to get your schedule right, your morning routine right, your study right, your relationship right, your finance right. Like, people are becoming overnight successes, millionaires. And so right now, as a young adult, you go, you can't really have any moment slip. It's almost like every moment has to count. And I think coming into this year, for me, it's going, even the failing moments matter, of how you get it wrong and what you choose to go on to do from there. Even when we look at our relationship with Jesus, it's the moments that fail that give God the opportunity to pick us up and strengthen us and redeem us. And so I think right now, at least for me as a young adult, it feels like every single moment, every single day matters, because you don't want to be the guy who's 23 and not a millionaire yet, you know, like everyone's just become this overnight success. And so when I'm thinking about it this year, I'm trying to give myself a bit more grace to get some moments wrong and not get it perfect, and seek advice and seek wisdom and be okay with being told you didn't do that moment well. But yeah, I think that's maybe a bit of my perspective around moments at the moment.
I love what you said. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the guy goes, he's 60 and he's a world-renowned speaker, and he goes, when I was 20 and 30, there were nothing was being recorded. None of my sermons were being recorded and streamed. So I had time to mess up and time to hone my craft, which is kind of what you're saying. You're like, man, sometimes we need moments to just fail and have everyone be okay with that and have the strength to move forward from that. I love that insight. Beautiful. Josh, what about you?
Yeah, there's been many moments. I think 18 to 25, if I think of 18 to 25, I think sometimes there's that, when I was 18 to 25, I would live in the moment. And I think that became such a impure, convoluted, gray thing to live in the moment. You know, you would be out at a party, or you would be in a friend group you weren't supposed to. You would be making memories that, you know, necessarily didn't add to your life. Like, we're talking about decisions and moments. And I think I'm still on this journey with Jesus. I'm not perfect in any way, but I think the moments become, you know, you live less in the moment and you live more for the moment. So I think those moments have purpose to them. And I think there's moments that are life defining because you're making small decisions to get to that moment, you know. And I think even for myself, if I look at, you know, the most recent one, I started working for our church in 2020. But I've been volunteering for so long. But everything up until that point was like just small decisions, do you know what I mean? And the moment when, you know, we got offered the job, came on staff, it was so funny that everyone, then we went into lockdown. It was April 1st when I came on. And it was lockdown, everyone, you know, kind of. But then what was the funniest thing was that everyone in the previous place that I worked got let go.
Wow.
So I wouldn't have had a salary if I was still there. Like, I wouldn't have had to work for that entire lockdown. So that for me was a moment where I went, man, God, your timing is perfect. Do you know what I mean? So where there was things where in the past I'm like, okay, cool. Like, you know, I'd really love to work for church, or I'd really love to build church, or you know, all of those kind of questions. But I still made decisions to, you know, stay faithful in where I was. It led me to that one moment. And it wasn't that I was working for church that was that massive revelation. There was everything else that came with it. All of how God revealed himself to me in that moment. So it was more, living in the moment is a very polluted thing, I think, now for 18 to 25s, because it's easy. You go to a festival, or you go to nothing wrong with those things. I do think like having fun in its pure form is great, you know what I mean? But living for a moment there's more purpose to it.
Sure.
I don't know.
I love it.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
it makes sense.
It makes sense in my head.
You're a deep guy.
Yeah. I think even like 1 Corinthians 9, so I run with purpose in every step. is maybe like a good way to say all of that, of going like right now to just put purpose into every moment, purpose into every step is what's going to move us into what God has for us as we're preparing for what's ahead.
I love it. Bring it back to the Bible. Thanks, bro.
Come on.
Got my back there.
Bible guy. Bible guy over
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Bible guy over here. I'm glad one of us. One of us.
Little gravy of us.
It's awesome.
Little gravy's got it.
I want to ask this. On our journey of sharpening our swords and preparing for the battle, it's a metaphor for the moment that God has for you and where God is taking you. And like we said, we're all in different times, and there's moments of great victory where it comes together, and there's seasons and parts of our lives where we're still grinding and trying to figure it out and sharpening daily. But I often find that in every season there's one significant thing that tries to hinder me or stop me or slow me down. And try to convince me to throw in the towel, try to convince me that today doesn't matter, this week doesn't matter, and just if I'm using the metaphor, just makes my sword dull, doesn't sharpen me, doesn't get me to where I need to go. I'm wondering, maybe in past seasons, what has been one of your biggest internal battles that you have had to overcome? Because there's many external battles. We've, as a whole global church, faced COVID. There's many, many things, but I find it's often the internal things that trip me up. So I'm wondering, is there like an internal battle that you've had to face as you are making these daily decisions?
Sure.
Just gonna go phone my boss quick.
Yes, yeah. Phone a friend. Internal daily decisions. Sure. I think when I was 18 to 25, I was married at 24, so I was kind of still in the age group, but 18 to 25, I dealt with a lot of insecurities, which really dulled my sword in a way. Like, I think, I'm answering the right question.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are right.
Okay. I'm trying to gather my thoughts, but also listen to you, Zico. I promise I'm listening.
No, this is...
Let me give it some more thought. Zico, you go. I need to think more. I mean, Zach, you go.
I'll speak to one that like maybe is a bit more current.
Yeah.
I think like right now I've stepped into a few new spaces, which has been probably not the season I've been in for the last 3 years, 4 years. It's been leading youth in the South, and that's been normal. And I've kind of gotten used to the like success or even the failure of those things and how to navigate that. But I think like stepping into something new where you don't really know your internal reference point, I think a challenge that's maybe dulled me is not knowing when I'm winning and not knowing when I'm losing, and how to continue to navigate that well, because everyone around you has a different frame of reference for what is success or what is a loss. And so I think at the moment my internal challenge is trying to figure out, as I'm growing older, I've been listening to a podcast recently where the kind of framework is we're not just growing old, we're growing up. And as I'm maturing and as I'm growing up, what is going to be my constant frame of reference for what's a win, what's a loss? Like, how do I read that? And I'm not just reading it off of like Josh's wins and losses and Zico's wins and losses. And so I think right now that's maybe my internal wrestle of how do I know when I'm winning and how do I know when I'm losing? And at the moment where I'm landing is the ability to just continue to show up. And right now, lots of people are deeming success as financial success or whatever. But I think right now is we just want to finish strong and continue to show up. There's like society right now, what's normal is if it's too hard, you quit.
Yeah.
And so right now for me, if I can just continue to wake up every day, show up, not shy away from the challenge, but go into it, learn more about it, gain wisdom, gain understanding, be better than I was yesterday, I think I'm doing all right. So I think that's kind of where I'm at right now.
I love that. Just keep showing up.
Yeah.
Just keep showing up. Man, that's 80% of the battle right there.
Yeah.
80% of the battle
Just be
is
faithful.
showing up to the battle.
Consistency, bro.
Yeah.
That's what
I
it
even
is.
think
Just be
about
consistent.
I even think about times where God promises the victory to his people in times of war, and he says, I've delivered these people into your hands. Just show up.
Yeah.
Just show up. And I think oftentimes what the challenge is for us is we don't know that God's going to be there with us when we show up.
Yeah.
We don't know if God's going to help us when we show up, so we stay home. And I love what you're saying there, Zach. Like, you know what? I'm not sure if I'm winning or losing, but I know I'm going to show up and God's going to do something good when I do. And so I love that. Do you want to add to that?
I'll add. I also think it's like clarity and purpose. I think, what do I mean by that? Like, you wouldn't cut bread with an axe. You know, they all serve the same purpose, but you know, they all do the same thing, but they serve different purposes. And I think sometimes we dull our blades because we are serving the wrong purpose. You know, like you're cutting bread with an axe. Exactly that analogy. You know, you're not a bread knife. You know, and I think you are still able to cut through the darkness and cut through things in your life and still be purposeful. But it's just finding that purpose. And I think that's what I was trying to say. What I struggled with when I was, 18 to 25, I struggled with finding that purpose. I thought my purpose was someone else's purpose. So I would try to like lead like Davey, and then I would just fail because I couldn't do that. I couldn't play keys like him. I couldn't MD like him, or, I would look at someone else's life and go, man, I wish I could do that. So then I would try and emulate that and do that, or even in the workspace, I'd be like, I want to, achieve this, and it just wasn't me until I found what I was good at and what purpose I could play within the sphere of life that I'm in your workplace, in the home, or wherever. And I didn't feel as dull or as blunt, if you want to talk to it in terms of like weaponry or kind of sword, because I played my purpose. And it doesn't mean now, this is what I am saying. I'm saying even if you do find your purpose, it's still your responsibility to sharpen your tool and your axe and your sword. It's still your responsibility, because it'll always eventually become blunt if you don't sharpen that. But it's the time frame of when you need to sharpen it. Do you know what I mean? Kind of thing. I think you get less. You can play your part, your purpose for longer. There's that faithfulness and that consistency in it, because you feel fueled to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think that's just to add, like,
it's awesome.
You would play the purpose that God has made. So I guess it's mainly going to the quiet places, sitting with God and going, God, well, what is my purpose? What do you want me to bring to my workplace? What do you want to bring to my university? What do you want me to bring to my home? Like what purpose is that? So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. One last thing before we say goodbye. We are speaking to, I'm looking at the camera, we're speaking to the future leaders of our nation.
Yeah.
We're speaking to future politicians. We're speaking to future lawyers. We're speaking to future accountants.
Yeah.
We're speaking to mothers. We're speaking to fathers. We're speaking to, who else are we speaking to? We're speaking to people that are going to lead in every sphere of life. You guys are going to lead in every sphere of life. And if you're listening, you as well. And that's why I want to have this conversation, is because we're speaking into destiny right now.
Sure.
But at the moment, it's not where it's at right now.
Yeah.
At the moment, it looks like classes, or at the moment, it looks like that part-time job. At the moment, it looks like being in front of the books. At the moment, it looks a lot different than what it's going to look like when you step into that destiny. Can you leave someone who's in that season of, hey, I'm not where God's gonna have me. I'm in the other season. I'm in the waiting season. What is sort of one nugget that you'd leave with someone to just encourage them before we say goodbye? What's that one sort of, but maybe you've said it already, but just sum it up in a sentence for us. What would you tell someone?
Yes.
You're not where you're gonna be. You're in your waiting season.
Sheesh. Man, what I've been encouraged with in this season, I don't know if this is going to answer, but I feel like when you're in the waiting season, when I mean waiting season, you're not where you've kind of like in the middle, 1 foot in what you were, and then kind of 1 foot in where you want to go, but you kind of just sit in the middle, And I feel like so often in that middle area is when you get attacked the most. Or for me personally, I've been attacked the most, and I've just always come back down to when things get hard, when you feel like you're under attack, when you feel like it's never going to happen, and your insecurities are kicking in, and all of these things feel like there's like this massive weight. I chatted to someone the other day, and they're like, man, this season feels like there's a massive weight, and it feels like, they're up to their neck in debt, like student debt, or I'm working 6 days a week and I'm not having off days. And I've been there. I know what that feels like, But I always come back down to this phrase that someone said, that the devil doesn't attack weak things. And I've held on to that for so long and I'll explain that in that, if you are a weapon to against the kingdom of darkness, of course, naturally, you're going to become under attack. And I think if you are under attack and you feel like you're overwhelmed, you feel like, things are just everywhere and you don't know when it's going to happen, when this thing is going to break free, just know that you're in the right place, because you're in right step with God. And the devil doesn't attack weak things, which means actually you're strong and you actually can get through this. And, all those dreams, desires, things that are in your heart, they will come. Again, multiplication. Your small decisions will lead to the multiplication one day. But in the gray, my wife and I were actually chatting about it, like, managing the middle, or like that kind of gray season. That's just something. There's lots, but that's the one thing I've been like really encouraged.
It's awesome.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Does that go?
I think something that encourages me is that Jesus was only known really from 30. And so if you're in 1825, like, you still got 5 years after that.
Right. Get ready. Get ready. Yeah.
What do I do?
Get ready. You got 5 more years.
I've only got a year. Oh no.
Buckle up.
And so I think that always gives me good perspective. Amazing. Of just like, Jesus wasn't really known much until he was 30, and then he went and changed the whole world. So I think there's a whole lot of potential. But I think
I'm 31.
You've got -1 year.
Yeah. Sorry, Josh. You're done.
It's over for you, bro.
But I like what you're saying.
And I think within that space, 2 things I think of is just where there is no vision, people cast off restraint. And what's going to give you the ability to endure and strengthen and equip yourself for the 5-10 years ahead is just having a vision for where you want to go. Otherwise, all the good habits, all the things fall away, because it just feels like there's no actual purpose. And then a quote I've been thinking of recently that I think's really been helping me is from a man named Johnny. And Johnny's just a good name, so I figured I'd drop his name, Johnny. And he was the previous director of rugby at UCT, and he used to say this quote of, if you want to go out and change the world, you first need to go within and change yourself. And his whole concept was, we don't want to send men, rugby players, students, young adults into the world who haven't first themselves been changed. And so I think what I'm trying to find peace about in this season is going, right now, being relatively unknown is my greatest advantage. And it gives me time to figure out who I am, my character, all the things that one day, whenever influence grows, I'll be ready to withstand that and stand strong and not tap out or be in the light at the wrong time. And so I think we've got this beautiful space from 18 to 25 to kind of be nobody and figure it out and
love it.
Move forward.
Like that.
Beautiful. Guys, thank you guys so much for jumping in and joining with us today. If you're listening, thank you so much for listening along. It's been a great conversation with Josh and Zacho, and we will catch you guys next time on the 1825 podcast. That's a wrap.